Welcome to the Miami Jewish Film Festival, the world's largest festival of its kind. We want to thank all of our members, sponsors, community partners, all of you film lovers, and especially our presenting sponsors, the Center for the Advancement of Jewish Education and the Greater Miami Jewish Federation, for their continued support throughout all these years. My name is Dr. Alan Mason. I'm a noted Jewish musician in Miami, synagogue musical director, teenage Jewish choral director, professor of music in a variety of schools, and I'm delighted to present the interview today. We're having a virtual conversation with Hershey Felder, the presenter, the producer, director, creator, filmmaker, the all of it behind this magnificent documentary called The Assembly. And The Assembly is having its premiere at this year's Miami Jewish Film Festival. So Hershey, welcome and greetings. Thank you for the time we'll spend together.
Nice to see you.
First thing I'm interested in, the genre, a musical film. What type of genre is that, please? A musical film?
I think I can say that it's a genre that uses music to drive the story, so that it's not just music that accompanies the story, but the music itself is the driving factor to how we go from one part of a narrative to another.
I totally get that, and I was bedazzled at the duality of the music being either one of two genres. It was either klezmer, the purest of klezmer, or the greatest of Stephen Sondheim and the whole disciples of artists around his world. So can you comment on the duality of these two very distinct musical styles that were clearly and meaningfully present where they were present in the film?
Well, a history, of course, all to set us in a space, to set us in a time. And the use of more contemporary music was to allow us to identify with the young artists who find this modern music their music, who call it their own music. And I think that was something that defined the old world and the new world and somehow separated it, and yet at the same time brought it together by being able to draw one on the other.
Beautiful. Yes. So as I am a music teacher and music historian by profession, just one inquiry, please, about the klezmer. There were moments where klezmer ensemble, groups of players were together. There were very expressive moments where a violin was alone. There were very expressive moments where a clarinet was alone. Was there intent behind that? Was that an expressive element in your creating of the film?
Well, I think always, as you film things and then you edit them, because one of the things that was important with the film, The Assembly, was not to control the scenes. I just had 5 cameras going on continuously. And it was only after and some of the things I hadn't even seen, because of course you can only be in one place at one time. But it was things that I discovered later that I said, oh, that it would be a very moving support for this. That's very moving for this narrative. But it was all real. It was not anything that was ever staged. The narrative control took place later.
Yes, it was so natural, such a natural, spontaneous conversation among the players. I hesitate to use the word actors. These look like the main cast of young people were a bunch of late teens or college-aged students, advanced students, pursuing creative arts. And they each demonstrated that in the film. And among them was such an incredibly eclectic, diverse range of colors, weights, heights, sizes, gender, visuals, impact. In contrast to Eva, was always dressed in total white, bathed in white, and all the furnishings in her room were white, as was her hair.
That was Florida, you know.
Okay.
Because Eva, of course, died. She was supposed to be with us, but she died of COVID during the time, and so was not
Yes.
able to join us. So the only interview that I had that was complete of her story was from a number of years ago in Florida. And you know, you want to dress when it's warm, a little bit light, and so it kind of worked out.
To me, I read something purity, a cleanliness, a purity, an honesty, a sincerity to her. To me, the white was purposeful. I didn't think it happened because she was in Florida. To me, it was very powerful because it created tremendous duality between the visual of Eva
Mhm.
and the cast of characters that were so colorful and
Well,
so diverse and so varied in cultural background. I
that's
found it really.
the wonderful thing about artistic magic is that sometimes the elements come together in ways you completely don't expect and don't even plan for. And
Yes.
the other wonderful thing is that there are certain things that you do because they work technically or whatever it is. And isn't it wonderful to find that audiences will see and make connections that maybe not were intended at the beginning? We were not intended at the beginning, but somehow they managed to be something.
Yes. Yes. As I looked at the film twice
Mm-hmm.
with an examiner's mind on knowing I'd have the pleasure of being with you in this setting, I looked for detail and content. The first time I viewed it, I was crying. I was blown over. Second time, I could concentrate more intellectually. And I found the magic of the duality, just the opposition of black and white photo, color photo, new imagery, old imagery. Such a beautiful, subtle placement of the contrast and duality of two different universes.
Well, you know, I mean, again, as I said, there's an alchemy that happens when you put all these things together that sometimes you plan for, and sometimes they resonate infinitely stronger than the plan you made. And
Yes,
this was one of those films that sort of did that.
yeah. Plan now, act later. And in the planning, you had no. It's act now, plan
Right.
later. So
Well,
you had so much rich content to craft, to sculpt the film with.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's well, these things, you know, I think in terms of the art of the film, you know, for me, film has been a lot about putting the right elements together and not necessarily planning the end result, but with the elements, if they're correct, um, you know, to make them work properly. When you put them together and you have this sort of magic that happens, it's always better than you ever expected it. Sometimes it's worse, but when it's worse, you know to get rid of it, and that's the beauty of film is that you can get stuff out if it doesn't work. And I think the thing is to be aware and conscious of what doesn't work.
Yes. Yes. So it was very exciting for me to see the first actor appear on the screen, Eleanor Risa.
Sure.
I have had the pleasure of working with. And
Hmm.
what I noted about her performance, she had such respect for Eva that
Yes.
I felt Eleanor never needed to try to be Eva. She wouldn't dare be
No.
Eva. I
No.
felt Eleanor was so beautiful about playing the part of Eva,
Hmm.
represent, representational of Eva in the representational sense, which I felt honored Eva very much as opposed to being Eva. It elevated the real Eva that Eleanor acted it as an actress, and I felt Eleanor was doing that.
Well, not only that, but there was a conscious effort to not try and pretend that Eva is there, but to give her words voice, which is a different thing. There's a difference between the pretense of having Eva there and having her spirit being brought forth by somebody who's creating her text or reading her text or so on.
Yeah.
And that was what was relevant, was not to make fakery out of it, but to do something like this.
I'm so glad you said that because I noted that. I didn't know if it was just my viewing it, but I really felt exactly that. And then, alternative to that, Eva's surviving son, Moses, was such a natural speaker. Anything he had to say
Yeah.
was himself being himself at all times. It was very pure.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I really did work on was making sure that there was never any fakery or any staginess, because and it worked very hard to do that as we were doing it. That just to let the story speak for themselves.
Yes. Even Eva in real life reading all of her content off of what looked like a notebook or something.
Hmm. Exactly.
It,
So, well, she was reading from her book or from her writing, I think. Oh,
yes.
I think, or her notes. I don't know, but because it was done like 15 years ago. But at any rate, other than that, we had nothing planned. It was
Okay.
just about where we were going, and we're going. I wanted to capture as much reality as possible.
Yes. Now, I don't know how the film industry works, but I do see that the content was created very late in 2022. A lot of it is dated in the film October, November 2022. So, how is a film assembled in such a short length of time that the content was just generated in the past year and it's already a magnificent film we're going to be viewing?
A lot of hard work, a lot of hours, a lot of
Okay.
study. I mean, there's no getting away uh from that kind of thing. They're just not. You have to work, and you just don't stop. And I'm sure if I continued pressing on, I'd find other things that I could do with it, even
Yeah.
though it does feel complete now. But
Yeah.
it's all about the work. So when we finished in October, but remember, October 20, it's a year now.
Just
Um, and it was ready this past summer. Uh, this is the kind of thing that you just keep on working on. And, you have director's cuts. I mean, this in the film business, director's cuts and this cut and that cut and the editor's cut. And so you keep on working until you really have the most concise emotional story possible.
yes. And the cast of students coming out of San Diego, how did you find such a diverse group of clever, well articulated, so beautifully self expressed young people?
I didn't have to look hard. I went to the school because Eva was supposed to come to the school to speak there. That's how that all happened. And I went to the school and I said, let's put together some students. And the teacher suggested some. The students submitted essays. But while we did take a very elegant cross section of students, many students there are well spoken, and I mean, it's sort of remarkable, and they're wonderful kids there. And I mean, these are, if one can refer to them as kids, 17 and 18 years old. But I thought they were just so beautifully poised and
Oh,
so thoughtful. And I thought, yeah, there's hope for the world if this is what we've got going, really.
yes. And so interesting that the number of them who revealed they are Jewish, either half Jewish
Yeah, like two or three of
or,
them were.
yeah, yet
Hmm.
they had to reveal it, they had to share it. Yes.
And yes, well, they did, but for reasons,
Yes.
you know, it's for reasons that are, um, they were, how do you call it, organic to the story as they came out. So it wasn't pushing forth. And it's interesting, I didn't know the backgrounds of all these kids per se. I mean, I could guess, but I didn't know, and I didn't ask, and I did that on purpose.
Yes.
Because we discovered what their stories were as we discovered their stories.
Right. Yes, so nice to let it open up organically. Moment generates moment. A real creative art.
Yeah.
And I noted some scenes where some of the women were not made up, hair, makeup. Some of the scenes were like purposefully just in their very natural sense. That was
Hmm.
interesting to see too. Everyone was being just who they are at all times.
Yeah. And that was really the intention. We
Yes,
wanted that. It's what we wanted to see happen. It's what we wanted to do.
yes, yes. And I'd be remiss if I did not acknowledge your own very beautiful piano playing and vocal accompanying of the singers.
Mhm.
How are the songs selected, and was that done with your
Based on,
direction?
no, they were not selected by me. I basically asked the kids to choose one song that moved them particularly well and they felt close to, and that's what they did.
Yes. So they all, on their own, gravitated towards that 20th century, that Stephen Sondheim school of Julie Stein, Barbara Streisand, all the songs I heard.
Completely on their own.
They have impeccable taste in music, wouldn't you agree?
They're educated, they're thoughtful, they know,
Yes.
they're
Yes.
interested, they're curious,
Yeah.
and they're nice. So that makes up for, that makes a lot of things worthwhile.
Yes. And I felt they benefited from your musical direction as well. It was beautiful presentations of the songs. Every word of text and every note was content.
I think
Beautifully
that
presented.
was a very important thing. Yes.
So the music was so clean and accurate.
Hmm.
And every word, every note, that you at the piano caused that, the beautiful accompaniment you provided for them. So
Well, yeah,
congratulations on that.
I just did what I do. So, you know.
Yes. Mhm. Mhm. Is there anything you'd like to share? Anything from yourself you'd like to ask me or share with me, or any aspect of the film that you would love to open up a conversation about?
Well, just that, given our times, it's an important film to look at, um, to see how easy terrible things can happen, how, if we're not careful, what can happen next, and how we all have this moral responsibility to not only address the problems of our own, but the problems of the world. I mean, if you look at the cross section of kids there, somebody pointed this out to me the other day. I didn't think of it that way because I just didn't, but I thought it was an interesting thing to point out, and that was that each one of these kids had some aspect of them that they would have perished in one of those camps, whether it was a young girl with autism or whether it was another because he was homosexual or the other because of some other reason because they were Jewish. So I didn't, this was not planned. It just kind of popped in this way because I was interested in a diverse group of kids. And that sort of came to the unspoken realization is that it is likely that none of these kids would have been selected to survive.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And that was a very powerful underscored thing that they all knew as we started learning these things, that if they were alive and they were there, it is likely they would have been incarcerated and probably murdered.
Oh, my.
Um, and that was a very powerful thing to see
Yes.
because it not only brings it home and makes it unbelievably real.
Yes. Mhm. And how did you come to the title, The Assembly?
Well, the whole thing was that um, that Eva used to go and give these assemblies or be guests at assemblies in various schools. And
Yes.
this was an assembly of a different sort where we were all together assembling in her honor. And I
Yeah.
love that as a concept, this idea that that's what was taking place, that we were creating an assembly with her memory, with her spirit.
It's beautiful. Thank you. And I noticed on the closing credits a huge staff of production professionals.
Well, yeah.
I saw a list that went on and on and on. Many Polish names. So those are production people you engaged
In
while in
Poland,
Warsaw?
yes. Yeah, and
Okay.
a really nice bunch too.
Yes. That film, it required a large production team. You managed a lot of content and a lot of people.
We were a lot of people, and a lot of people had to
Yes.
do a lot of things to make that work. So, but we did.
Yes.
But we
Yes.
did. Yeah.
And I also noticed in the film that the full cast was often always visible.
Yeah.
Everyone was in the film the whole time. It was almost like a 19th century, a grand opera, a large cast of characters who were always present.
If they were, that was an important part of it. It was a
Yes,
very important part of all of that.
yes, yes.
Um, so I mean, again, it's about the alchemy. Sometimes you don't know what you're getting into until you get into it, and then all of a sudden it shines. And we were very lucky with this film. It did.
That's beautiful. Just wonderful. Well, congratulations on a visually exquisite film. The colors are so rich and noble,
Thank you.
always
That's very kind.
in contrast with Eva's stark white against the colors of Poland. Her Florida white on white was stunning. So it's visually really nice to have that. And it's been a pleasure getting to know you, and it's been a privilege for me to have this time with you. I've never engaged with a film presenter, maker, creator like this, so thank you for the opportunity.
And thank you very much. It was a wonderful.
You're so very welcome. So thank you, Hershey. Once again, thank you to all our members, sponsors, community partners, volunteers, and all of you film lovers for participating in the Miami Jewish Film Festival. And it's been my honor to meet Hershey Felder, the presenter of The Assembly, which is having its world premiere this year at the Miami Jewish Film Festival. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.